I was raised in Shipshewana, Indiana, which is the third largest Amish community in the U.S. So although I label the Amish as a cult because of their religious fences they build, I have since left the community because of that. But there are two things that really stand out about the Amish, and those two things are work ethic and community. Both of those are important. Work ethic, number one, that if you talk to former Amish, once they leave, they come out and they work in this environment, they are shocked at how lazy people are. Like, they just don't know how to dig in and do the work and just get it done. We, as Amish kids, we have chores from 2-3 years on. We have responsibilities, right? We learn how to wash dishes. We learn how to take care of animals. We have stuff we have to do every day, and that's where our work ethic comes from. And a lot of people in this world nowadays, they just, well, that's just too much responsibility for a little kid. Just let them be a little kid. Well, wrong. When you teach your kids a good work ethic, they just mature more. They're more responsible when they're teens, when they're 14, 15, 16 years old. That is why that 200 years ago they married at such a young age, is because at 13 years old a girl knew how to run a house. She knew how to cook, she knew how to do all the dishes, all the laundry, she knew how to take care of babies. They were just much more mature because of the responsibility that was put on them. Same with the boys. They were men at 13 years old because they knew how to run the ranch or the homestead, right? They knew how to take care of animals. They knew how to do everything. And it is now when you take a kid who's been taught responsibilities at a young age and who is just more mature, and you compare that to a city kid who has never done anything for himself, that his mom or his parents have washed his clothes, done his dishes, all his cooking all the time, there is a huge difference. And it saddens me to see that. Very important. Teach your kids how to work. Teach them responsibility. Hold them accountable. You'll be glad in the future. You'll be proud of your kids. It's not their fault that they're lazy. It's your fault for not doing anything, not making them do anything. The second thing is community. Community, the Amish, nobody does community like the Amish. I'm telling you, it is fantastic. I know you guys are all familiar with the barn building. That's just a part of it. Just for example, so Amish have church at their house, and they take turns. Every member takes turns hosting church at their house, usually about once a year. And a couple days before that Sunday they have church, all the neighbor ladies get together and they wash that house top to bottom. Ceilings get scrubbed, walls get scrubbed, the basement gets washed out, the china cabinet gets cleaned out, the dishes all get washed, the cabinets, the kitchen cabinets get washed out, everything gets just top to bottom gets scrubbed. So at least once a year your house gets a really, really deep cleaning, and it only takes a day or two for that to happen, right? Everybody pitches together and does it. Another thing is if a farmer breaks his leg or something, the neighbors will take their teams of horses over there and do the farming for them. And sorry about the shaky video. One of the biggest things is, since they don't have a church house, if somebody dies, the funeral, they usually have 2 days of viewing. They take the body to a guy who embalms it, or a funeral home, whatever, who prepares the body, but then they have 2 days of viewing, and then the third day is a funeral. And it's really fantastic to see. So if when a person dies, the neighbors will come over and they just take over the farm or the house, whatever it is. They'll just come over every morning and every night. Somebody orchestrates it all. They do the chores, they clean up the barn, they prepare for this funeral for 1,000, 2,000 people to come walking through this place because they have the funeral at the person's home. So the house is cleaned and everything is just taken care of. The family does nothing but be with family. The food is all prepped for them. Everything is done. It's really fantastic to see. And I think 200 years ago, 150 years ago, it used to be like that. we've lost it, and it's time to get it back. How do we do that? I've wrestled with that myself, because I now live in Idaho. I don't live in Shipshewana or Indiana anymore. You know, so how do I get community started? And it's so hard because nobody else sees it. You know, it's going to take hard times for them to actually see that community is important. My suggestions would be to, most of you guys have gardens, right? So take your extra food over to the neighbors. Knock on their door and be like, here's a dozen eggs and some fresh organic garden tomatoes, corn or whatever, right? And start that way. And if you guys see a need, just go over and help. Go take care of that need. It kind of what Christ calls us to do as well. Even if you have grumpy neighbors, man, this is where it's at. Even if you have grumpy neighbors, do it anyway. Go take over your garden veggies, and if he snobby or whatever, do it again, right? You can win people over by just taking the beating, turning the other cheek, and giving. And I think that's one way to start. I would love to see our community get back to having like a harvest day, where maybe even a farm or animal harvest day, where you would have a butcher day, where you would get together and help each other butcher pigs or cows or whatever it is, and then have a harvest party at night. It's a big old bonfire or something, you know what I mean? I remember us doing that as Amish people, as a family. We'd get together with the cousins and we'd butcher, and we'd have a big fire and a big kettle with cracklings, I think is what it was called. All day as kids would, we'd have to help here and there, but then we would just gorge ourselves on these cracklings, end up feeling sick because we ate too many. But it's what we need to get back to. I wanted to share that with you guys. You talk to any former Amish, what they miss the most, the first thing 90% of them will say, other than family, is community. They miss community, and their work ethic. They appreciate, any one of them, I have not heard any one of them complain about how hard they had to work. A lot of those guys, we didn't, because we didn't live on a farm, but a lot of those farm kids work like sun up, sundown, baling hay, doing all that if they're not in school, and they hate it at the time, but I have never heard any of them complain about that. I have only heard them share how they appreciate the work ethic they were taught. It's the way to live. The Amish are doing that part correctly. Onward.